Welcome to the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast, where we hope to inspire you to embrace your God-given gifts, skills, and passions in order to lead with confidence. We want you to remember that you are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and you are fully loved by Him.
You have been designed on purpose by God with unique gifts and passions in order to love and lead those around you. I'm your host, Esther Littlefield, a pastor's wife, business owner, mom, and writer.
And I'm Esther's co-host, Holly Kane. I'm a wife, mom, and business owner. I also write at hollykane.org, where I focus on my passion for women's ministry.
Together, we chat about important issues that Christian women leaders face. In addition, we interview other women just like you who lead in various roles, from church to community to business. Through this podcast, we offer you encouragement, tools, and resources to help you on your leadership journey. We are so glad you're here with us. Over the past year, God has used the words of others to save my life. Maybe that sounds a bit extreme, but there have been moments and even weeks when I have not been able to believe the truth. My mind and heart were so disoriented by pain that I couldn't discern what was true and what was lies. God provided friends, counselors, coaches, and even my bar class instructors who spoke words I needed to hear at just the right time. Today, I'm sharing some of those words with you. Hey friend, I'm Esther Littlefield, and I'm the host of this podcast, and I am so excited to be back in front of the microphone today and sharing a brand new episode with you. If you are a long-time listener, you may have noticed that we have been running some replay episodes since the month of August. And the reason for that is that in May, I moved from Maine to Tennessee. I started a full-time job, and it's been a pretty big season of transition around here. And so between Holly and I, we decided we needed to just take a break from recording new content and share some of our most popular and favorite episodes from the past 5 years of the show. So I hope you've been listening to those. I actually have listened back to a couple of them myself, and it's just been such an encouragement to hear those older episodes. All right, so what's going on today? Today, I am sharing with you something that I posted on Instagram last week. I shared this post about words that are saving my life, and I got a pretty big response to that post. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to share this on the podcast because it's possible, it's very likely that some of you listening to this podcast maybe haven't seen that post on Instagram. And also, I wanted to take what I shared on Instagram and just give a little bit more context around some of the words and phrases that I shared in that post. And what I want to do in this episode is share with you what I am learning about leadership as it relates to these words and the things that I shared in the post. All right, so let's dive in to what some of these words were. And again, just for context, I posted this and I shared several phrases that have meant a lot to me over the past year. And I'm just going to go through those phrases one by one and kind of share what the phrase is and then give you on some of them a little bit more understanding about what it means. So the first one is, it's not always going to feel this way. All right, that is one that I have had to go back to time and time again. That's one of the phrases, and I honestly don't remember where I first wrote that down or when I first wrote that down, but somewhere when I was in a place of truly deep pain, I had somebody say to me, or God spoke to me, I'm not sure what it was, but it's not always going to feel this way. And it's one of those things that it's hard to believe in the moment when you are grieving or when you're suffering. If you've ever, gotten hurt really badly, in that moment, you don't feel like the pain is going to end. It's hard to know when the pain is going to end or if it's going to end. But having a reminder that it's not always going to feel this way, that at some point things will feel different, that is a powerful and helpful reminder. And so I go back to that. If I'm in a moment where I'm struggling, I go back to that reminder that it's not always going to feel this way. The next phrase is, it's okay to give myself space and grace. And that came out of a counseling session that I had where, my counselor just reminded me of the fact that when you are suffering, when you are grieving, you have limited capacity. You are not able to do as much as you normally can do. And for someone who is maybe a little bit more of a high achiever, someone who likes to get a lot done, someone who is very goal-driven, it is hard to give yourself space and grace. Can anyone relate to what I'm saying here? And so that has been a mantra as well for the past year of my life, of just recognizing that I needed to give myself grace, that I didn't need to beat myself up for not doing things or just not having the capacity. And I needed to give myself space for rest and for healing. The next phrase is, I trust you, Jesus. I may not understand, but I trust you. And this is one of those phrases that I had to start telling myself because there are things in our lives that don't make sense. And we have a choice in those moments to trust Jesus or not. And even when we don't understand the situation or what is going on around us, whether it be a health diagnosis or a major trauma or a loss of a friendship or anything that you might be grieving or suffering with, in those moments, he wants us to come to him and trust him and just curl up in his arms and turn to him, even when it doesn't make sense. And so this is, again, something that has been an encouragement to me, a good reminder that I may not understand, but I can put my trust in him. The next phrase is one that I like a little bit less, but it's helpful. And it's this: keeping anger bottled up is the fastest way to become resentful. Now, I'm pretty sure this is one of the phrases that probably came up in a counseling session where my counselor might have reminded me that it is okay to feel our emotions and it's okay to feel anger. And there are times when we need to just allow the emotion to come out in a safe space, because when we bottle that up, it will turn to other things. If it's anger, it may turn to resentment. I'm sure there's lots of other emotions that can turn to other things that are not healthy. And so just having the emotion itself is not the problem. It's what we do with the emotions, right? And so when we have anger, we need to acknowledge it. We need to find a way to express it in a safe or healthy way. And we need to not bottle it and not stuff it. So that's something that I've needed to remind myself, because again, as someone who likes to do things the right way and I want to honor God, there's been times where I have been upset with myself for feeling anger. And it's one of those things that I've had to learn, okay, I can feel the anger, but then I need to choose what I'm actually going to do with that anger. Okay, the next phrase is this: I am loved. You, Lord, have not forgotten me. And this is probably just like my adaptation of one of the many Psalms that have a similar sentiment. We read so often in Scripture the reminder that God is with us and that he has not forgotten us. He does not abandon us. And so being able to reaffirm to ourselves that God loves us and he has not forgotten us. For me, that's just so comforting. And it's something that, again, I need to tell myself on a regular basis. And I find it reassuring because other people will always let us down in one way or another. People are not perfect, but God is, and his love is perfect. And his presence is always available to us and always with us. And especially when we are suffering and in pain, He is able to be that present comfort and that present love for us. Okay, the next phrase is this: every trigger is an opportunity to heal. Whew, that's a good one. That one came up more recently, and I remember my therapist saying, the goal is not to avoid the triggers. So if you've had an experience, a difficult experience, the experience might be over, but there may still be things that come up that remind you of that experience. And, for people who have been in a car accident, and maybe it was at a specific location or with a specific type of vehicle, then it might be that when they see that same type of vehicle or they drive by that same spot, that's a trigger. And it's virtually impossible to avoid those triggers, right? And what we have to learn is to see the trigger as an opportunity to heal. And so again, for me, it's bringing that emotion that comes up, bringing those feelings and those thoughts that come up when I have a trigger to God and processing them with Him and processing them with a healthy, safe person. Those are some ways that we can heal from the triggers versus ignoring them or trying to avoid them. Okay, here's your next phrase. I have permission to take up space and ask for what I need. Now, I don't want us to all think about this the wrong way. And this is not about being someone who just wants to get everything our way. That's not what this phrase is saying. What it's about is recognizing that your needs are valid. And especially when you are healing, especially when you are on a journey and you are in a place where you're maybe not your healthiest, you may need to get and ask for more help. And you may have to choose to not become small or insignificant in a situation. You may have to speak up and say something because it's what is healthy and right for you. This might be around setting boundaries. This might be around, just asking for support from a spouse, from a coworker, from a friend. It might be that you need to express and say, you know what? I am really not in a great place right now, and I want to maintain our friendship, but I'm struggling to be the one who reaches out and checks in. So can you check in with me, once a week? And that takes a lot of humility to say that or to do that. But this is the kind of thing that it's okay to do. It's okay to be honest about where you're at and to take up that space and to be clear with the people around you who love you and who care about you and let them know what you're needing right now. It doesn't mean that you're always going to get it, but you have the right and the permission to ask for those things. Okay, here's our next phrase. The hurt cannot become my identity. I don't remember where I heard this one, but it stuck with me. And it might have been in a talk or a podcast or something that I listened to, but it just reminded me that the things that have happened to us in our lives are not who we are. And so we need to recognize that who we are, our identity is based in Christ and in His love for us and the fact that we're made in His image. It's not in the things that have happened. And so what has happened in your life, in this season, in the past, wherever you're walking through, it's part of your story. It's never going to not be part of your story, but it doesn't have to be your identity. Okay, here's the last one that I posted on my Instagram post. Embrace where you are right now. That came from a barre class that I go to. So when I moved here to Tennessee, I knew that I needed to do something for my physical health. And I looked at options and I went and tried out a barre class and I liked it. And so I signed up. And so I've been going for the past several months. And some of the things that the instructors say during the classes are just so powerful. And they're just really talking about our physical bodies and the movements we're doing and our breathing and these different things like that. But many times I find that they correlate to my spiritual life, my emotional health, my mental health, lots of other things. And this phrase, embrace where you are right now, was the instructor just referring to a situation that we were in, a movement we were doing in that class in that moment. And yet I saw that I needed to embrace where I am in my life right now. And as I thought about that, I realized, there's a few things that have to happen in order for me to embrace where I am right now. One is this: I have to accept where I am. I have to accept that this is the reality, even though this was not the reality that I thought would be the case. And I have to let go of what I thought the reality was going to be. And then I can move into embracing where I am right now. And I think embrace where you are right now doesn't always mean that you're going to like every part of it, but it means that you are moving towards having a present focused mindset. Instead of looking back, instead of looking way ahead, you're just in the moment and saying, this is where I am, and I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to give it all I've got. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be with the people I'm around, and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to embrace where I am. So that might mean something totally different to you, and that's okay. And any of these phrases that I have shared today could mean something entirely different to you. And that's why I wanted to share them, because I think sometimes there's words that mean something and are really, really important to one person, and they may not be the same. They may not have the same importance to someone else. At the same time, sometimes I find such value from hearing the types of things that are encouraging to other people in my life. And so I wanted to share this with you today. The last thing I want to share with you is how this relates to leadership. You're listening to this podcast most likely because you are a woman who either wants to learn to lead more effectively, or who is in a leadership role, who is maybe you're a business owner, maybe you're a leader at a church, maybe you are a mom and you are leading your kids. There's lots of scenarios that you might be in listening to this. And I believe what I'm going to share right now doesn't matter what type of leadership you're in. This is what I want you to take away from this podcast. Your words matter. The words that you say to others in your life have power, and you have the power to build people up or to tear them down with your words. And I think that is the biggest overarching lesson that I have gotten from just reflecting on these words as I posted them on Instagram, and as I've reflected on various things throughout the past year or so that I have heard said to me, is that words have power. They have power to derail someone and to completely, shake their confidence and to cause them a lot of pain. But words also have the power to build up and to restore and to do so much good. And so as a leader, I want to call you to using your words for good. And there's 3 things I want to remind you that you can do with your words. There's probably a lot more. These are just the 3 that came to mind as I thought through these phrases and the different ways that they impacted me. So one way you can use your words for good is you can encourage. You have the power to encourage other people because your words can bring light to someone's day, and it does not have to be a big thing. You can encourage someone by simply sending a text message and saying, hey, I care about you. I'm praying for you. You know what? You're doing an awesome job at XYZ. I know I've gotten texts before from some of my friends who've just said, you know what? You're an awesome mom. You're doing great. I know it's hard, but you are doing the right things. You care about your daughter, all that. And that's just encouragement, right? You can be specific in your encouragement. You can tell somebody specifically what they did that was impressive or encouraging or meaningful. And you can also just express how much you care about them. Any of those things can encourage someone. Don't underestimate the power of a small word spoken to somebody in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. The second thing your words can do is they can bring healing. When someone has been wounded by words, you have the opportunity to help provide healing with your words. And again, you may not always even know that your words are bringing healing or encouragement. But when you take a moment and maybe you pray for someone in the moment when you sense that God is asking you to pray for this person, just do it. It's awkward and scary and sometimes might not land the way you wanted it to, but it can bring such healing when you take a minute to pray over someone or when you take a minute to just speak a word of encouragement. And I know I just said encouragement and then healing, but they kind of go hand in hand. But specifically, sometimes the words that God will give to you about this person to say to someone will be a healing balm to their soul. And again, you may not know that. They might tell you, they might not, but use that opportunity when the Spirit leads you to be someone who brings words of healing. And then the third thing your words can do is they can bring truth. Your words have the power to bring truth. And like I said at the beginning, I read to you at the very beginning a portion of the caption that I posted on Instagram with these words. And I shared that there was a season and times when I was struggling to really see what was true. And that felt very scary to me. And I needed other truth tellers in my life who were reminding me of what is true. What is true about God, what is true about me, what was true about the situation, a lot of different things. And I still need that sometimes. In certain moments, I still have my husband and friends who will speak truth and remind me of truth. And sometimes I don't like hearing the truth. My co-host Holly and I, sometimes we'll be having a conversation and one of us will just be maybe in a bad mood or we'll just be having a hard day. And the other one of us will kind of bring in some truth and some logic and some reasoning. And we will say, oh, well, if you're going to be reasonable about it, like it's a little bit frustrating when someone brings reason and truth into the conversation. But at the same time, that is often what is needed in the moment. And so for me, I know that some of those phrases were truth reminders that in the moment that I heard them or, God reminded me through scripture of those things. It was something that I couldn't remember on my own. I needed someone else to bring me that truth, and I needed to hold on to that truth. So you have the power to bring truth through your words. Of course, we need to be gentle with this, and especially if someone is hurting, you have to be very cautious about how you bring the truth. So I just want to say that take that with a grain of salt and use wisdom. With that, we don't ever want to batter somebody with the truth, but we do want to remind them of what is true. So how will you use your words today, this week, this month? As a leader, your words matter, and you have the power to make a difference in the lives of those you love and those you lead. Thanks, friend, for being with me today for this episode. Look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, friend, for being with me today for this episode. Look forward to talking to you again soon. Hi, friend. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast. We're so glad you took the time out of your day to listen, and I truly hope that it made an impact on your ability to lead well. If it did, would you consider sharing this episode with a friend? You could take a screenshot of the episode and share it on your social media, maybe an Instagram story or on Facebook, or you could just text the link to a friend. We would truly appreciate that, as when you share with a friend, it helps spread the word about the podcast, and it helps more women to be able to be impacted so that they can lead and love others well. Now, don't forget, your leadership matters, and it's time for you to embrace your gifts and lead with confidence.